It's July the 27th, 2022, and this is Tips from the Top Floor episode 910.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hello, you wonderful people of the internets. This is Chris. You're listening to Tips from the Top Floor. So I told you about this crazy idea of doing an Eastern Europe photo road trip. That's the one that starts in Berlin and then goes through Prague and the Czech Republic and Vienna in Austria, Budapest in Hungary, and then ends up in Transylvania in the heart of Romania. And that potentially 10-day trip, the idea keeps maturing. I spent a lot of time thinking about how this would be, how this would work, how this would be structured, how this would come together. And it has become obvious that I need to do this tour on my own first. Well, I might take one or two people with me, but probably it's just myself. So I'm planning to do that scouting trip for the Eastern Europe photo road trip in the middle of August. And I thought it would be fun to take you with me. So I'm planning to do a bit of vlogging from that scouting tour. And of course, the focus is on the scouting, not on the vlogging. So in addition to figuring out how to structure that content to make sure that you're getting something interesting, there's technical issues to be solved. And again, main focus is to scout that tour, not to spend hours and hours of wrangling recording technology and editing videos. Because if you've ever done something like that, you know that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So I looked at a lot of different options, like cameras that I might need to buy for this, audio setups, all with the goal of being able to do the one thing that I've perfected over the years of traveling, and that is to pack as lightly as possible. Because if I've learned one thing over those, 13, 14 years of traveling, it is not to overpack. And of course, I'm also trying to see what I already have, because that can get expensive quite quickly. And I don't necessarily want to spend a lot on gadgets that I won't use after that. I have enough of those. I've learned my lessons, at least I believe I have. Plus, another goal is to optimize the time that I put into these videos while keeping the quality at a level that is good enough. And guess what? I ended up coming back to the iPhone over and over again. That would mean virtually zero spending. And I tried it and I played with different softwares, and I have that thing with me all the time. The microphone situation is solved with what I already have, even in a pretty good sounding way. And the editing can take place on that same device. Yeah, I know it's fiddly, but it's actually not that fiddly if you find the right tools. Editing on the same device that I capture with, and then posting the videos. There's automation possibilities today that that weren't there a while ago. So yeah, doing this on one device is awesome. The quality is good enough. And by the way, it also can record from more than one camera at the same time, because this is one of the kinds of shots, not necessarily every shot, but I want to shoot some of that video out the front window while driving, and I want to film myself while I drive. So I want to have myself picture in picture in that video. So my first impulse was to go with a GoPro. I have a knockoff, which I think would be good enough for that, and then set up another camera, possibly an iPhone, that will point into the cabin. Those need to be attached somewhere, so you probably need additional suction cups and things for the front window. And then I'd need to power all these devices, and I'd need to record the audio in some way, likely separately. Or I spend a few $100 for a wireless microphone and then spend additional time in post-production. Because with these things, you add up additional time in finishing it. So you need to like synchronize the different videos and the audio, which I guess would have taken place on a laptop. And of course, these devices need to be powered or charged regularly. And now my setup would be a whole zoo of devices and cables and things. But the way I've figured this out now is that I can use one single iPhone and one lavalier microphone and the edit on the iPhone. So no extra device. I'm pretty happy with that setup. And I've recorded a small video with that setup while driving, a little test, if you will. And that is on YouTube. The link is in the description. Let me know what you think. TFTTF.com/hi. Oh, and that video is mobile first. I made that decision later after shooting it. But yeah, it is vertical. Vertical video. I think it's a good fit. And there are more people watching this from their mobile phones than from anything laptop. So the one area that, by the way, gave me the biggest headache was the audio. So you have to understand that sound, the further sound travels between a source and a microphone, the more that sound has the chance of bouncing off of things, reflecting off of hard surfaces like glass, for example, muddling up the sound. So putting that iPhone on the front window with a suction cup is great for the video, but the microphone is too far away from my mouth. Too much noise from the car. Even though it's an electric vehicle and it doesn't make too much noise, but still, I wanted it to be clear. So it's much preferred to have the microphone near my mouth. So one way to achieve that would be a wireless audio transmitter. Again, there are some really sexy options out there. The one from Rode, I don't like the looks of it, but it sounds, Rode Wireless Go, I think that's the name. Sounds good. It works well. There's a newer one from DJI, which is very sexy. It comes with a charging box and a transmitter. It's this whole package. The whole set it and forget it kind of setup. But again, that would set me back over 300 euros. And I have very limited use in my daily life for this thing. So that would be collecting dust after a while. And again, it would require me to set things up in a different way. So it's an additional thing. It needs to be charged and so on. So I had a look through my lavalier microphone collection because I have like 5-6 different lavaliers for different purposes. And I found a relatively cheap one, which is cabled. And then I looked into how I could connect that to the iPhone. Welcome to Dongle Town. It is amazing what hoops you have to jump through, but I made it work. So, okay, so the lavalier has a stereo mini jack, TRS, tip ring sleeve. So it has 3 contacts. And then there's no headphone jack on the iPhone. The headphone jack on the iPhone is a headphone and microphone jack. But again, as we know, Apple dropped those a while ago. Others followed. So I need to use the lightning adapter. There's a little lightning to headphone adapter that works well. No problem there. Other than it's not a TRS, tip ring sleeve adapter. It requires a tip ring sleeve connection because it assumes you'll plug in a headset that has a microphone built in. So TRRS instead of TRS. So that means there is not just a lightning to headphone adapter, then there is an additional adapter that is the TRS to TRRS adapter. Now, and then that's where the lavalier plugs in. Now, of course, I want to power the iPhone while recording video, but that lightning dongle already uses the port. The port that would usually be used to power the iPhone. So The solution to that is to replace the lightning dongle. That's where I've started spending, well, a little bit of money. That's where I replaced the lightning dongle with one that allows me to plug in both power and the microphone at the same time. These things are out there. So there's this there's this cascade of dongles between the iPhone and the headphone. Plus there's this the USB cable feeding power into it. So it looks a bit like a Christmas tree. But hey, it does the job, and it does it really nicely. Watch that video. I'm totally happy with how that came out. So that is my story, my tech story about setting up my vlogging setup. Of course, there will be other vlogging with, I don't know how I do the other. I mean, I'll be walking around. I want to take you on some of those walks as well. So, but I'll figure that out. I still have a couple to 3 weeks to figure that out. All right. I made a note here about what is Tips from the Top Floor, or what has it become? Because I've looked through the history of TFTTF, and that show it's never been easy to pinpoint what it is exactly, because I remember I did like regular photo education, as in how to use your aperture for artistic effect and these kind of things. Sometimes also look into news, into stuff that happens, and that stuff still interests me, but this is about being in the mainstream or not being in the mainstream. And I believe, no, I do actually know that there are plenty of shows out there that can serve that mainstream so much better than I can do, and so much more consistently than I can do. So the show has over the years always been more on the fringes, more on the periphery of photography rather than in the middle of it. And yeah, I mean, there's stuff about the latest cameras, latest software, and I might cover some of that. But I think the big difference is I will only cover some news and some hardware and some software only if it interests me, or even better, if it excites me. And more often than not, I end up being so much more interested in the things that happen at the edge, at the periphery. And that's the stuff that I often find so much more interesting than how many megapixels the latest Canon mirrorless camera has. So I guess I might have to change the tagline for the show. This is where you come in. Give me suggestions for tagline for Tips from the Top Floor. TFTTF, the show about all things photography. Maybe, I mean, that used to be the one. I'm not sure if that's enough. Anyway, tfttf.com/hi. I want to hear from you. All right, here's a quick exercise for you. Open your web browser if you can right now, if you safely can do so right now, and go to thisimagedoesnotexist.com. That's a little exercise. Thisimagedoesnotexist.com. That website presents you with 30 photos, and for each of them you can say you can click if it's been made by a human or by an artificial intelligence. And honestly, I was wrong more times than I wish to admit. So, can you tell if these images are generated or human made? Yeah, check that out. This image does not exist. I found this a funny little tidbit. Another funny little tidbit is, so I have to go back to mid-May, where, was it end of May? Mid-May? Anyway, in May, we held the annual Old Abbey photo workshop. I've talked about this here for ages, and we're still doing it. It was big. It was 30 people. It was an entire week of amazing fun, intense work, great projects, lots of learning, lots of playful learning, learning in a positive relaxed atmosphere in the middle of a beautiful nature preserve with lots of green and a river, and like, oh wow, it's just, there are reasons I keep coming back to that place. So anyway, one of the things we did there was we did some crafts, some soldering, and we built a little box with a battery and a potentiometer and a few LEDs on it that you can use to create some interesting foreground bokeh lights. Looks a bit like light leaks, depends on how you hold it. And that front bokeh thing is, it's interesting to give a photo more depth, and I've seen it more and more in some type of photography, and yeah, I kind of like this for some photos to change the mood a bit. And of course, yes, you can buy devices that do it, little crystals and things that you can put in front of the lens. But that one was just a fun little thing, and you can change the brightness of it and so on. So that was a fun project to do. And just the other day, I ran across a little. Let me figure this out. Front here on the website. There's the iPhone or iOS 16 beta is out right now, and one of the things is they have added something to their portrait mode that I found interesting, because it goes along those same lines. How to make a convincing foreground blur in portrait photos. Now, the portrait mode is the mode that simulates shallow depth of field. And by the way, every year that gets better and better. So it is becoming a viable option even for people, at least for some kind of shots, even for people who are really invested in big glass and big sensors. So anyway, that is interesting, because in iOS 16 they added this, or they will add it once it's out of beta, a more realistic foreground blur in portrait photos. And I tried it out, and it looks very convincing. So that is a thing that I found interesting to point out. Astrophotography. Here's a quick astrophotography topic that, well, it's not quick. It's an interview that I did a few weeks ago, but I thought it was interesting because it has to do with, well, some of us are astrophotographers. We go out at night and point cameras and have trackers on them and point them at either the Milky Way or pick out some constellations. Andromeda comes to mind, which is not a constellation, which is a galaxy. But and that is fun until you end up with an airplane crossing through, ending up with like artifacts in there that you might not want. So there are techniques to filter those out and so on. But in general, it's a quite involved kind of photography, using special filters and so on and so on. And when a couple of years ago, SpaceX started to send thousands of satellites up into lower Earth orbit, the entire community was up in arms. Not just astrophotographers, astronomers. So took me a few weeks to get a contact, and then another few weeks to get some more details about that. And I ended up talking to Meredith Rawls. She's at the Vera C. Rubin Observatory. And she's an astronomer, and she is also very deeply involved in the Astronomy Society, dealing with lower Earth orbit light pollution. And that's one of the things that happens when you end up pointing telescopes at the sky. You end up with disturbances, and some of that is not good. So I just wanted to understand more what the problems are, how they are trying to be solved, and what kind of things are going on in that area. Because personally, those satellite constellations don't really affect me. I can hardly ever see them up in the sky. I don't do much astrophotography, so it's nothing that bothers me personally, but I know that a lot of you out there are sort of bothered by that. So I've recorded that conversation a while ago, but I think it's still very, very current, and that is on the YouTube as a video. Chris talking to Meredith Rawls, and I found it very enlightening, and I want you to watch it too. So there you go. Let's see. Do we have any more things? Well, I don't think there is much to talk about anymore. That episode is long enough. Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for, write in to this episode. I want to start cultivating that again, the whole notion of you guys hearing each other's voices in either written form where I read it or sending in a voicemail. We have done this in the past, and I always found it to be a super valuable part of this show to give the community a voice, and to answer questions and things, to relay some anecdotes and so on. And you can do that. I've set up an entire new little framework that makes it really easy for you to get straight on the show. It's at tfttf.com/hi. tfttf.com/hi, where you can write a message, or you can record a message, or you can send a recording from your phone, and so on. It's all there, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Other than that, of course, this show is on Twitter at TFTTF Photo, TFTTF PHOTO, and the podcast is at tfttf.com. And that's it for today. Yes, that was it for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for pointing others to this little show. I'm so happy that TFTTF is back.
If you want me to go, you better let me know. I remember that I told you.
And at a regular frequency again. Couldn't be more happy. Again, don't forget to write in, record something, send something at tfttf.com/hi. Oh, by the way, here is your feedback. Albert wrote in. He said, I was super excited to see TFTTF pop up in my podcast app. Good to have you back, Chris. I did listen to The Future of Photography, but didn't enjoy it as much as this podcast in the past. Hoping to learn more fun photography knowledge from you moving forward. We are still here. Take care. Thank you, Al. That is amazing. Dave wrote in, I really missed your unique view and touching on topics most mainstream photo shows don't cover. I'm 61, been into photography since the late 60s. My wife and I once owned a successful portrait studio. Thanks, Dave. And then last but not least, Sasha wrote in, Hi Chris, I've just listened to the post-hiatus episode of TFTTF. Yes, my podcatcher still works. I'll keep listening. Thumbs up. Thanks for the podcast. And the new topics are as exciting as just a pure photo talk. Greetings from the Northern Black Forest. Thanks all. And of course, you can all write in to tfttf.com/hi. tfttf.com/hi.
I remember that I told you there'd be sunshine after rain.
Other than that, make sure to take loads of photos.
I remember that.
Be nice to each other. Be extra nice to each other.
It seems makes it easier to leave.
And happy shooting.